Good morning. I'm Mark Baer. You're watching YourTown Television. My guest this morning, P.K. Diffenbaugh, the Superintendent of the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District. Good morning.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's just jump in. How did you, as such a young man, get to where you are?
Yeah, well, so first, I'm a hometown kid. I grew up in Watsonville, mountains above Watsonville, and went off to Stanford and got into education. Did a stint back east to get my doctorate, and then wound up in Garden Grove, Orange County, which was a foreign land to me growing up in Northern California. And so when this position came open, I put my hat in the ring. It was a chance for me to come home, be closer to family, and serve a community that I cared deeply about, and it was a good fit. So I feel very fortunate to be here. I'm in my 4th year now as superintendent, and it's been a great experience, and we are making a lot of progress. And so I'm proud of our accomplishments to date, knowing that we have a long way to go.
Let's talk about just what in your tenure. What are some of the significant accomplishments that you've done so far?
Yeah, so I'm very proud of our investment in early childhood education, for one. So we have expanded preschool from a half-day program to a full-day program. We've expanded transitional kindergarten, which is an extra year of kindergarten for 4-year-olds turning 5. When I got here, we had 2 classrooms, 2 schools, and now we have transitional kindergarten at every site, which means over 400 more kids now have access to early childhood education. We've expanded music to be a transitional kindergarten through high school program, so every kid has the option to take music.
So you're really bringing the arts back into the schools.
Yeah, we believe in the whole child education, that there's kind of no child left behind focus on just math and English was not the right approach. I have my own kids in the district, and what I want for them, I should want for everyone, and that's a well-rounded education. So we've invested in the arts, and so I'm very proud of that. We have gotten 2 DODEA military grants, over $1 million over 5 years to support our military-connected students, which I'm proud of. One is for supporting their transition in and out of school, and the other is for STEM education for our military-connected schools. So there's a lot to be proud of. We've invested in social-emotional support. We have a social-emotional counselor to each of our secondary schools. We have 1 counselor for each 2 elementary schools, really supporting our kids, many of whom are overcoming a ton of challenges in order to be successful. So, and then finally, our secondary initiative, Reimagining Teaching and Learning, where we're moving towards the International Baccalaureate at Monterey schools. In Seaside, we're moving towards a project-based learning, New Tech Network, one-to-one computing, and then in Marina, you'll be option to take college-level courses at the high school. So you can graduate with an AA degree and a high school diploma at the same time. So we're really trying to reinvent and reimagine what our secondary schools can be, and leveraging the assets in the community to do so. So in Monterey, as you know, we have the Defense Language Institute, Naval Postgraduate School, Middlebury Institute of International Studies. The city is branding itself as a language capital of the world.
It's very interesting here that we are a very big education center.
Absolutely.
We see ourselves as a resort center or something like that, but the education here is I don't know that it's a well-known thing about where we are.
I agree. It's world class. You have the Defense Language Institute, literally the world class education. You have translators and future ambassadors coming through the Middlebury Institute or Naval Postgraduate School. I remember sitting with a military leader who said, some kids in your schools, their parents may be future presidents of their countries. When you think about it, that's a pretty big deal.
For a small town, it's pretty heavy stuff.
It's a pretty big deal, yeah.
So what are your challenges? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so I think number of challenges, but primarily I would say that if you look across our facilities, the newest school we have was built in 1965. So we are essentially trying to teach 21st kids into the 21st century in 20th century facilities, and that has a host of challenges. So, you know, our science labs aren't up to date, our athletic facilities aren't where they need to be, you know, our libraries aren't multimedia, you know, established for the 21st century. So it's a real challenge, and you know that's probably, you know, number one. Certainly, cost of living here on the peninsula is huge, yes. And you know, for a teacher or a classified staff member to be able to afford to live here is very difficult. Relatedly, we have about 8% of our students qualify as homeless, if you can believe. Wow. That. That's over 800 kids.
That's a hard number. That's a high number.
It's about over 800 kids, and that's not because they're living on the streets or under bridges, but the way the federal government defines homelessness is more than one family to a home, you're considered homeless. You don't have a home to yourself. And we have many families living 2, 3, 4 families to home in order to make it here on the peninsula. So it represents a huge challenge, and then you can imagine the difficulty that the schools need to deal with, the challenges that students bring as a result of those living conditions can be immense. So,
well, that leads us into Measure I.
Yeah.
So let's I'll let you explain what that is.
Yeah, sure. So Measure I is going to be on the June ballot, June 5th, and it's a $213 million facilities bond. And really, the ask to the voters is to invest in schools so that we can bring the facilities up to 21st century standards. It's a rate of $60 per 100,000 of assessed value, not market value, but assessed value. And so for the average homeowner or property owner, it will be around $200 a year that we're asking in terms of an investment, which will yield $213 million over the life of the measure to invest in our schools. So this will allow us to make infrastructure upgrades, to improve our science, technology, engineering programs, improve our athletic facilities, libraries. Will really create the conditions that will help us take the next step as a district. So when I got here, I was the 7th superintendent in 10 years.
Wow.
Which is, you know, you're going to have some challenges in an organization that has that much turnover. We've been able to stabilize. We've been able to lay the foundation for improvement. And now to take that next step, we need added investment into our facilities. And so we're going out to the community and asking for support. We did a poll and said, you know, asked likely voters and came back overwhelming support. About 78% of people said, yes, we'll invest in our schools because we know it's important for our community, we know it's important for our kids. It's a 55% threshold, so you know we need to make sure that we get those voters to turn out and vote, but we're confident based on the progress that we've made, based on the need that we have. You know, many parents that I talk to, they went to our schools and they come back and they are amazed that they're in the same general aesthetic condition as when they went to school. It's, you know, if we're preparing kids for the 21st century, we need 21st century facilities, and this will allow us to take that next step.
Well, great American, we were talking before the show, and great American public education was at the core of, you know, what America was.
Absolutely.
The trend has been a different way lately,
Yep.
and we've been seeing our schools get decimated.
Yep.
And you've seen communities not want to pay for their schools, and you see what happens when they don't pay for their schools.
Right.
And we were talking about our community on many, many levels and many fronts being at the forefront of kind of progressiveness and cutting edge thinking about, you know, problem solving for the future, which I'm very proud of where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, when you look at Monterey, it is a world-class city. You know, I mean, you have literally some of the world's you know, prominent organizations, whether it's the Defense Language Institute, Middlebury Institute, Naval Postgraduate School, and we believe the school should reflect that. And in order to do that, we do need the community to invest in the schools and support our schools. In California, at one point, California was in the top 5 in terms of investing in schools. That was before Prop 13 when it changed the property tax, and now California is in the bottom 10 in terms of states investing in schools. So we have a lot of work to do in order to restore the California to where it should be in the nation, and certainly on the Monterey Peninsula, we want to be a part of that. We believe that we are making progress, we are making the right steps, and certainly we think that this bond, while it's not for salaries, not for administration, it's purely based on facilities, it will help us make that next step.
So I have got to ask you about guns because
yes, sure,
that's
in the news.
That's in the news.
Yeah.
I personally don't want to see my teachers packing heat.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
What's been the thinking?
Yeah, so I mean, I think fortunately in California we've been very proactive and very progressive in terms of creating rules and laws around gun use and schools. And so the California Safe Schools Act prohibits anyone from bringing a gun to school that is not a school resource officer or other licensed professional. So there is a clear delineation. And so we understand Texas, different states have different views on this, but we very much feel that teachers should not have guns. And I think what you saw happen this last week at one of our schools is a great example of why that's not why that's the case. Is even the most trained professional, accidents can happen.
Yeah, and again, I want to say in this because people get vilified in this.
Sure,
it's not bad people; it's bad ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And if you talk to educators, as I have, not one has told me, yeah, this is a good idea. And so I think it's more an ideology around, guns equal safety, and I certainly think that that's not an ideology that most educators subscribe to.
So in the next, let's look at the next 5-year plan. Yeah. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, we've created a strong foundation on which to grow. In the next 5 years, I think that we'll continue our investments in early childhood education, in the arts, in our secondary initiative. When the bond passed, that will increase our ability to invest in the facilities of the schools. And I think what you'll see is that our secondary models are really starting to take hold. Where right now, they're just getting started. In 5 years, I expect you to earn an AA degree and a high school diploma at the same time in Marina. In Seaside, you will have a pathway to have a computer science degree that will have you be able to enter the job force or go to college ready for an upwardly mobile career. In Monterey, the International Baccalaureate, you'll be able to get a diploma for an International Baccalaureate, which is internationally renowned as one of the highest honors you can get as a high school student. So you'll see students choosing schools based on their individual goals, based on their learning styles, based on where they want to take their future, and it will be a very dynamic environment, which I think similarly as people point to DLI or Naval Postgraduate School as being one of the forefronts in terms of education at the secondary level, post-secondary level, you'll see people pointing to Monterey saying, you have to go there and study what they did in order to transform their secondary schools, and how did they create the strategic investments so that students are entering those secondary schools ready to excel. So I think that's all coming in the next 5 years, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. There's no substitute for that.
And I know there's been a push to create not only students with the skills for the future, but good citizens with civic knowledge.
Absolutely.
So that because again, that's become. We've really relaxed on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that what we're seeing now is access to information is there for everyone, but not all information is equal, and we really need to make sure that our students are gaining the skills to understand what is real versus what is someone trying to manipulate you. And in terms of civic engagement, I was very proud this last week there was a national school walkout And we've supported our students and said, if this is something you want to do, our responsibility is to ensure that it's in a safe place, that we're in charge of your safety, but we're going to support you to have your student voice. And all across the campus, it took different forms, but students were expressing their voice, expressing their opinions and their their insistence on action, and it was far more powerful than I think I've seen in terms of a recent memory. They really stepped up and were, and I was proud to be their superintendent to see how they were civically engaged, demanding that adults start acting like adults in terms of gun safety and gun control. And I think it was very powerful to see. It made me have hope for our future because right now in Washington, as you know, not a lot is getting done, and these young people started to demand it, and I think that you're only going to see it increase from here.
Yeah. Saturday is going to be interesting, the march on
yeah, Saturday's going to be interesting, and then there's another one planned for the Columbine anniversary in April. So I think some people are thinking, oh, well, we'll just wait till this blows over. I don't see this blowing over. Kids are passionate. They aren't doing this because someone's telling them to do it. They're doing it because they care deeply about this issue and are very, very intent on demanding change.
But it's wonderful to see kids find a voice.
Yes.
Young people find young people find a voice and find that ability to take themselves seriously and have people take them seriously.
Absolutely.
And, it's a two-way street.
Yep.
And that's very heartening.
It is. It is. It's inspiring. And at Monterey High, for example, we said we really want you to stay on campus because we think that's a safer environment. The kids said, no, we feel it's important for us to demonstrate off campus. So we worked with them and said, okay, here's a safe route around the school, around the district office, and we worked together so that we were ensured the safety, and it went off flawlessly. And I think our kids really were able to exercise their voice and their civic engagement in a powerful way.
So again, let's just recap Measure I. It's June 5th.
Yep.
And what's your call to action here?
So our call to action is to invest in your schools. It'll be a little over $15 a month for most people to create a huge difference for our schools to move from 20th century facilities into the 21st century. And that's our call to action, is to vote yes on Measure I. We believe it's a sound investment. There's Citizens Oversight Committee. There's independent audits. Not a cent goes to this federal government or state government. All is locally invested, and it will help us take the next step as a district.
And even if your children aren't in those schools, it still is a benefit to the greater good.
Exactly. You can't have a great community without great schools, and this is a way to help us get there.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm Mark Baer. You've been watching YourTown Television. My guest has been P.K. Diffenbaugh, the superintendent of the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, and vote yes on Measure I. Okay, I've got it.